At the 2014 Auto Expo, Bajaj showcased the CS400 concept, which finally launched in the year of 2017 as the Bajaj Dominar 400. As a new Bajaj product, there was apprehension about quality and reliability, but Dominar proved everyone wrong with thousands of owners doing long-distance tours on this motorcycle, and it turned into a formidable performer in terrains like Ladakh. 3 Indian riders took the motorcycle on a 53-day trip over 15,600 kilometers and suffered 0 breakdowns in the harshest conditions of Siberia. In the past 1 year, the Bajaj Dominar has proved its mettle on the harshest of terrains. And in 2018, Bajaj has decided to refresh its colors. We have 3 new colorways which all look very stunning, but my favorite is this red one because it reminds me of the beautiful concept motorcycle from the 2014 Auto Expo. Welcome to the 2018 Bajaj Dominar review. We've already ridden it and reviewed it last year, and the specs remain unchanged for this year as well. But just to remind you once again, the Dominar has a 373.3cc single-cylinder engine producing 35 bhp of power at 8000 rpm and 35 Nm of torque at 6500 rpm. The motorcycle is liquid-cooled with 6-speed gearbox and also gets a slipper clutch that is very light to operate. The beam-type perimeter frame that gives it good stability in the straights with a longer wheelbase of 1453 mm. The curb weight is on the heavier side with 182 kgs, and it is something that I would really like to reduce with this bike. Braking is done by a 320 mm big single disc up front with 4-piston calipers, and the rear is a 230 mm disc. Both are made by Bajaj. The motorcycle also gets optional dual-channel ABS. I highly recommend that you get the ABS version instead of trying to save a few thousand rupees. Front has a beefy 43 mm telescopic suspension, though it is not an upside-down unit, and the rear gets an adjustable monoshock. Tires are provided by MRF, and though the size is decent, I feel these tires are not enough if you are looking to take this motorcycle regularly to the highway, and is one thing that I would immediately upgrade if I bought this motorcycle. The new red color really brings out the muscular tank shape that houses a 13-liter fuel tank, and the motorcycle gets a full digital console with LED headlamps and indicators along with Bajaj's trademark backlit switches. But that is all I have to say about the specs. Let's head out to the highway and see how it performs on the real road. Okay. Whoa, went hard on the brakes on that one. We was just exiting the corner and realized that there was a lot of traffic. It's manageable, I would say. The brakes are pretty good. These are a Bajaj unit, and Bajaj has been, offering very budget-oriented good brakes for several Bajaj motorcycles. They're keeping it simple, but they're keeping it very effective. This is a heavier motorcycle, by the way, so yeah, the braking did not disappoint. Exiting the corner, I was in a soup, and obviously I knew that I could rely on the brakes. This one does have ABS. Okay, cornering. Just having a softer suspension setup does a little bit of, I was kind of apprehensive whether I'll be good enough in the corners. Specifically moving out of the corner, that throttling, I'm a bit scared of doing that because of the suspension being soft, but it does hold the line pretty well. And if the road condition is good, if the road condition is bumpy, it's going to move around a little bit because of the suspension setup. But if the road condition is good, you can get good lean angles on this bike. And it was not actually designed to do something like that, but if you're doing highways or doing something like if you're touring somewhere and go to the hilly section and you go through some flowy, nice canyon roads, I think this bike will be good enough to handle it. You just don't go too aggressive on it because the suspension does move around the bike a lot, and that kind of takes away from the front end feel. But this being but once you put this bike into a corner, because of the 50-50 sort of weight distribution and the longer wheelbase on this motorcycle, it does hold the line very well. So that part, corner entry may not be as good, but once you get in there, it's gonna stick to those lines. You can be on 6th gear and you can maintain 5 and 6,000 rpm, which is relatively lower rpm, and you can still cruise at 100 kilometers per hour speed. And that is one of the best things of having a bigger displacement engine. I mean, you can say that your 150cc motorcycle can do 100 kilometers per hour cruising speed as well, and it can actually, but when you're doing it on a bigger bike, you're actually at such a low rpm that your engine is such in a more relaxed state, so you're not going to damage the engine even if you're doing all day riding, which is not true for such smaller capacity engines, because they're being revved to their limits to maintain that kind of speed. Let's try a little bit of filtering with this bike. So this is considered to be heavy, but the front end is actually so light that I'm not having any problems filtering through the corners, through the vehicles I meant. Pretty easy bike to filter with, you don't really feel the weight, so I think it's very easily livable through the city riding even. Yeah, you would feel the weight if you're doing U-turns and you're slanting the bike over, but apart from that, very easy bike to handle and live with. Let's test a little bit of the acceleration. I completely screwed up the launch with the traffic and everything, but I mean, what I can say is the power figures are definitely, oh wow, applause. Some more filtering for you guys to see. Okay, an actual horse buggy. That's pretty rare. I don't know what this traffic is all about. I have no idea actually. I don't want to hit. For a moment I thought this was my Duke and I'm gonna scrape the hand guards. I don't have hand guards. Okay, so we're gonna try to squeeze the bike in. Like I said, very easy bike to filter with. You can squeeze it in all you want. Tightest of gaps. Won't be much of a problem. Well, let's talk a little bit about the ergonomics. The handlebars are not too high, but they're in a pretty good position, and you don't really have to lean down on the tank to reach your handlebars, which is good. And I'm about 5'8", about 65 kgs, and I find this motorcycle very suitable and comfortable riding position, and I can do hours and hours on this motorcycle. I'm only doing 50 kilometers per hour, and at this speed there is absolutely no vibrations, but when you do go to around 100 kilometers per hour there is certain vibration that creeps in. But this bike still can manage 140 130 kilometers per hour cruising speed if you can ignore the vibrations, and you can use heavy leather gloves like I'm using the Dainese Druids T1 long gloves. If you're using that kind of gloves, you can filter out some of the vibrations. The foot pegs are vibration free, at least on this version, and previous year I think the foot peg vibration was more, but this year they've managed to dampen that out quite a bit. If you see the foot pegs, they are absolutely below you, so it's not at all rare set, like a very standard motorcycle. And for an adventure riding bike, I really like that foot peg positioning. For cornering and all that, maybe not the best position, but this is dedicated for touring, and for that it's, as you can see, I'm riding very straight up with a slight lean forward, which is good. Not like the cruisers which bring up the handlebars too much, because that's not ergonomically well. It puts too much pressure on your spine. This one manages the ergonomics pretty well. Bright LED headlights are on. early morning, and that really looks great when you turn these lights on. At night, I've ridden this bike and the LED headlights are just fabulous. I mean, you don't need to mod this bike in the lights department if you intend to do night touring, and there's a great value to have on any motorcycle, even on the Bajaj Dominar. The brake are definitely gonna be good, as I've already shown you. We've got a single bibrake disc up front, and again a single disc at the rear as well. The clutch is very light, maybe not as much as the Kawasaki bikes, but still, if you're comparing it with the previous generation of Bajaj bikes, the clutch is pretty light, and I've not faced that much of a problem. The power delivery, as I've talked about, is pretty gradual, and as we've accelerated this bike quite well, it reaches to a top speed of about 167 kilometers per hour. Last year we tested it out. I'm not gonna do it this year as well. It does have wind blast because there is no aftermarket windscreen. I think we should, in the 2018 version, they should have added a windscreen, because that would have added so much more value to the motorcycle. It does feel very torquey, and on a cruiser or on a touring oriented motorcycle, torque is one of the most important features, especially since you don't need to shift that much. You can just maintain 5th and 6th gear on the highway and maybe push it down to 4th when you're slowing down too much, but you can even keep this at the highest of gears and you can maintain 60 kilometers per hour cruising speed. It won't be that much of a problem. You know, when you're in the highway, especially with no quick shifters on this type of motorcycles, you're gonna get tired over time. If you're riding a motorcycle which requires a lot of shifting, so this actually doesn't, which is a great thing. Pretty agile bike for the lane changes in the highway. Even, you know, it's heavier, but we can easily do some lane changing. And because of the front end, you can't really be too aggressive with it, because the front end kind of lacks feedback and feel. But you shouldn't be complaining about that while you're riding a motorcycle which is mainly designed for touring. And obviously on the bad patches of road, I've already seen how good this motorcycle can be. So it's a fair trade-off for a motorcycle that is particularly designed for doing that sort of riding. So it's time to do some little fast riding now, and with the motorcycle, and see how far this can go. It's time to do some high-speed riding. Putting this bike through the paces, it doesn't really feel that bad. I mean, you're so engaged in the ride, you kind of forget about the little vibrations that are there, and you start enjoying the power delivery in the higher RPMs. It's very linear, so you can take more chances with it. It's not going to surprise you anywhere on the rev range. So that, even when I was riding the Aquila, I felt that was going to be a good thing, because you can be more adventurous with the bike, knowing that the power is always under your control. Not very happy with the tire performance on the very high speeds. But you know, if you're getting this bike for the value it offers, I am pretty satisfied with what it's offering. Tires are a component that you can easily change, especially since this bike has the same tires size as the KTM Duke 390. You have the options of Pirellis and Metzelas out there. So if you're a finicky guy like me who cares a great deal about tires and all that, you can very easily get a grippier set of tires, and then this motorcycle, I kid you not, it'll feel much more better. And if you're one of those you know, off-road guys who are probably waiting to take this motorcycle to Ladakh, you're probably looking at a set of knobbies. I would say go for something like Continental. The guys from Siberia noticed, they said that they were using Continental TKC-80, and those were really expensive tires, but I believe you have even budget oriented options from Continental and even Seat Vertigo tires. The suspension, even in stock form, is good enough to handle bad roads and a taller windscreen. These three things, and I think I'm ready to take this motorcycle to Ladakh. For those who want to have a better seat, they can also install a softer seating option. I'm gonna get a brand recently contacted me called But It's Crazy, and they are sending me a softer seat. So if they air cushion seat, if they send me that, I will also review that and tell you whether this bike will be needing that for better comfort. But you know, sitting on a KTM Duke 390 2013 version for the last 4 years has given enough training to my backside. So while I'm on this Dominar, I'm feeling that even the stock seat is sufficiently comfortable. I like hearing this engine sound. Sometimes I'm more happier in the 5th gear than the 6th, and I don't want to shift it to the 6th one because I like to hear this bike on the higher RPMs. Anticipate for the truck changing lanes, shift it down a couple of notches, break it down to see the truck. You know, if you're riding on the highway, keep an eye out for the wheel, the front wheel of the truck, because before they're about to shift, they slowly change the direction of the front wheel, and you can tell if they're gonna change the lanes, because they're not gonna use indicators. So that's just a tip. And look at that accident. You know, this sort of stuff, they kind of get too aggressive. They change lanes without thinking, and they don't change lanes slowly, they suddenly change the lanes. So that can be very big of a problem. You won't be getting the time to adjust your position or break it down, specifically since we are at a higher speed than them. So keep your speeds in check to a level where you know that your hard braking will work. It will depend on your skill, and it will depend on the types of brakes that you're running on your motorcycle. So on this bike, I would say 120 is good enough for me, because I know I can break it down from that level. Maybe a more professional rider with better skill can do better, but on the level of braking that I've sensed on this bike, 120 panic braking, I am pretty comfortable. Beyond that, maybe I need more braking distance. Just giving a little bit of caution to the cycle guy. I've seen some of the London videos how much motorcyclists hate them because their lack of road sense apparently. See, this truck, they changed the lane gradually. This doesn't really bother me that much. But obviously using an indicator would be nice, especially since you're not a motorcycle and you're not going that fast. And the switches on this bike, they've made it more premium than previous generation of Bajaj, and I'm really happy with the fit and finish on that Bajaj Dominar. Really enjoying this ride, and I've left the group behind and just enjoying my time with the motorcycle. On the higher speeds, it does become very easy to operate the clutch. You just flick and shift through the gears. I know that you don't really need to shift that much, but since I'm trying to keep this bike on its peak rev range, I'm actually keeping it that way. One of my friend who owns this motorcycle, Altmas, she's also riding with us today, was saying that the gearbox takes a lot of effort and is not as good, but I don't really mind that it takes a little bit of effort to shift. But it's very true. I mean, there's no false neutrals on this bike, or you definitely know that when it's shifting, it gives you that feedback that it has shifted into the right gear. So I'm not gonna complain about the gearbox, which takes a little bit more effort, basically because I've ridden different motorcycles and some of them do require a little bit more effort to shift, and the gearbox I find has never hit a false neutral on me, and I'm more happy that it performs that way. Club GT is here today, so we've got all the cars, and let's just do a little bit of like walk by, drive by, whatever you want to call it. A beautiful array of cars. Oh, the golden Lamborghinis there, that's ridden by a woman. It was in the news previously. So the lady driver who drives this Lamborghini is pretty famous. So we've arrived at today's destination, the CCD, and that's it. So we're back from the ride of the Bajaj Dominar, and I must say that I'm really impressed. Early morning we started out in the city, and in the city itself it was very easy to ride. I have a lot of friends who own the Bajaj Dominar, and they've told me that it doesn't heat up in heavy traffic, so that's another plus point. For those of you who are wondering about the mileage, you get about 28 to 30 kilometers per liter, which is good for this size of an engine. My KTM on the other hand gives around 25 kilometers per liter, sometimes even 22 in the city. That's talking about the Duke 390. So they've definitely tuned the engine to give more mileage, which is what many Indian people like. Obviously it's a lot more comfortable and ergonomically superior for those long distance tours, which is what the point of the Dominar was from the very beginning. And we've already seen how good it is on the harsh terrains. So if you ask me to talk about the 3 good things about the Bajaj Dominar, I would definitely say it has to be the ergonomics, how the bike feels on the highway because of the good amount of torque, and definitely the value for money factor. At 1.8 lakhs you're getting ABS version. So those are the 3 major good things about the bike. And if you're talking about 3 bad things, firstly obviously it's going to be the tires, and you can easily replace that. I recommend Metzeler Sportec M5. It's easy to replace, right? So that cannot be considered a demerit, especially when the bike's just 1.8 lakhs with ABS. Now the second point is obviously there are some vibrations on the right handlebar, and that I really did not enjoy, but they have made a little bit better than the previous version. At least on the foot pegs there's no more vibrations, so that's the second negative. And third is obviously the curb weight. It's about 180 kgs plus, which, you know, if they could reduce it 10 kgs it would be super awesome. So those are the 3 positive and negative things. Finally concluding, 1.8 lakhs for an ABS version. I'm not going to talk about the non-ABS version and its pricing. Price point, the ABS version is really value for money, and there is not much we can fault with this. The new color schemes, a lot of people have asked me whether they look good in person or not. I love the blazing red version. The blue one also has sparkles along with the black one, which also has some sparkly thing when you're looking up close. All the 3 versions look great. The yellow alloys is something like, reminds me of the Yamaha R1 2010 version. In person this is more like a glitzy color scheme. It's not the subdued version from the previous year. So if you like that kind of way, this is gonna appeal to you. And personally I think the motorcycle's lines are being accentuated by this new blazing color schemes. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and if you are looking for buying this motorcycle in and around Kolkata, I'll put the numbers on screen right now. You can ask them for a test drive or even booking the motorcycle. And we worked hours and hours on this video, we edited, and we're not sponsored by everyone, so it really helps us if you hit that subscribe button and hit that bell button right next to it. Thanks for watching, and like always, see you very, very soon. We are coming up with a Z900 review and also one gimbal review, so you know, hit subscribe and stay tuned. Goodbye.